863 suddenly becomes violent and attempts to break his restraints. Director Mandeville activates the shock collar. You! I'll kill you! You're the pervert! Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you SCP Foundation Keter Class Object SCP-1788. SCP-1788, also known as The Adults, is a process, treatment, or other means of biological transformation. A prepubescent human being subjected to 1788 will become an instance of SCP-1788-1. On reaching adulthood, 178-1s will display a predatory behavior towards prepubescent humans. Typically, they will settle in a large urban center. There, they will take on a form of white-collar employment and begin tracking prepubescents in the area. However, they will usually not seek employment in a job where they would work directly with children. Presumably, this is to limit suspicion. Approximately once every 6 months, a 1788-1 instance will attempt to abduct one of the subjects that it has been tracking. Once captured, it takes them to a remote or otherwise unobserved location, where it is subjected to the 1788 process and turned into an instance of 1788-1. Little information has been gathered from captured instances of 1788-1. These 1788-1 instances are of above-average intelligence and show extremely strong resistance to compulsion, coercion, torture, and other forms of information extraction. More detailed observations are difficult to make, as instances refuse to take standardized exams. In addition, they become aggressive and uncooperative when forced to answer questions, demonstrating an unwillingness or inability to comply with tests. To date, every instance has also shown signs of malignant narcissism and psychopathy. They generally demonstrate a complete lack of empathy, while also showing keen psychological insight. For these reasons, among others, unauthorized contact with 1788-1 instances is strictly forbidden. Individual instances generally do not voluntarily gather or interact with one another, except for the purposes of mating. In fact, when two or more instances are placed in the same environment, they typically fight for dominance. This behavior is not gender-linked, in that females and males will fight one another in addition to their own genders. In a mixed gender group, there will be only one dominant individual, who may be male or female. Captured instances are housed separately to minimize damage. Multiple instances have been seen in the same general urban area, but never in a ratio greater than 1 to 100,000 normal humans. Their gestation period is approximately 40 weeks, which is roughly the same as humans. Their offspring are genetically indistinguishable from normal humans and are not considered anomalous. However, as they are prime candidates for undergoing the SCP-1788 process, their capture or termination is to be considered high priority, second only to the termination of 1788-1 instances. According to the 1788-1 anatomy report, it is extremely difficult to distinguish a clothed 1788-1 from a normal adult human. Individuals show variation as expected from gender and ethnicity, but share certain characteristics in common. 1788-1 individuals appear to be obese, within the range of 150 to 200 kilograms when fully grown. 1788-1 instances have larger than average eyes, though not enough to appear abnormal on casual inspection. Their sweat contains high levels of potassium and copper, though still within the normal range for an adult human. While they seem normal on the outside, their internal anatomy has been altered extensively. 1788-1 instances' long bones and cranium have been reinforced with several heavy metals, and their muscle fibers have been interwoven with structures resembling carbon nanotubes. This gives them increased durability, strength, and speed that measures well above the human baseline. 1788-1 instances possess backup organs and systems for most of their body's vital processes. For example, they have a secondary heart, which is located lower in the torso. This heart can work in tandem with the primary heart to more efficiently circulate blood. Additionally, it can also function independently as necessary. Certain blood vessels have complex valve structures, allowing instances to close off blood flow to damaged limbs and other areas to prevent excessive blood loss. Other organ systems also have 2 or 3 redundant backups that can take over in the event of failure within a primary organ. 1788-1 instances also possess a secondary brain, located in the upper torso and protected by its own skeletal structure similar in construction to the rib cage. Currently, the exact function of this brain is unknown, but it is known that this brain can continue to function even in the event of the destruction of the primary brain. This phenomenon was demonstrated in an incident where a team of agents were able to lure a 1788-1 instance into the range of a sniper, who was able to destroy most of the instance's head, including the entirety of the main brain. However, the instance still displayed full mobility and partial lethality, disabling 2 agents, 1 fatally, at close range. It is unknown how the instance was still able to sense the agents with most of its primary sense organs destroyed. Research is ongoing. The final difference in gross anatomy is the appearance of a second pair of arms, located directly below the main pair. These have apparently equal strength and dexterity to the upper pair, and 1788-1 instances are apparently capable of using all 4 arms simultaneously. When not actively hunting, instances hold the lower pair folded closely to their sides, where they are largely concealed by natural bulk. When hidden in this manner, it is virtually impossible to distinguish a clothed instance of 1788-1 from a normal, obese human, with the only exception being upon close inspection. Below is an interview log between Site Director Mandeville and SCP-1788-1-863. The 863 was restrained and fitted with an electroshock collar for this interview. Please state your name for the record. I don't need a name. Names are for children. The driver's license and other materials on your person identify you as… Is that your name? That's my childhood name. I don't need it now. Then I'll refer to you as 863. Call me what you like. Just don't call me late for supper. You were found by our agents outside an elementary school, and documents in your car and apartment include multiple photographs of the victim, taken without their knowledge. 863 suddenly becomes violent and attempts to break his restraints. You, I'll kill you. You're the pervert, you. If you're not 863, then why are you observing human? 863 stops, attempting to break restraints. You think they're the victim. I can't believe we came from you. Explain what you mean by that, 863. 863 does not speak. Director Mandeville activates the shock collar. 863 does not visibly react. That's what I mean. You think you can hurt me with that? You're a failure, Doctor. You don't even know what you are. Would you care to elaborate, 863? You wonder why your scientists haven't found any anomalous implants in our bodies, why we have no surgical scars, why our genes are pure, unmodified human genes. Because we are human, Doctor. Your x-rays don't look very human. We don't look like you. We're not failures. We're not children. You regard us as children? You still look like children. You aren't finished. What do you… You're stunted, incomplete. You're like the amphibian that grows up to breathe water instead of air. The eggs I watched, they must hatch into us. They need to be finished. So you abduct them to complete their metamorphosis? We don't need companionship. We don't live like you, in herds. Each one of us knows what we need to do, and each of us is capable of it. And what do you want us to do? Grow up or die. Containment of SCP-1788 is currently impossible, but the Foundation currently has 7 instances of 1788-1 imprisoned in Armed Biological Area 223. Contact with these instances is strictly forbidden outside of approved experiments. Each instance is to be housed in a separate humanoid containment cell. Any suspected instances of 1788-1 are to be reported immediately to Armed Biological Area 223 Command. Personnel are not to engage suspected instances and should retreat immediately upon an encounter. A dwarf 3288 climbed atop 3288 Alpha's shoulder and lifted its red veil, covering only the eyes. 3288 Alpha sniffed the air, then proceeded to lift the cauldron and pour the victims down its anonymously large mouth and gullet. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you SCP Foundation Keter Class Object SCP-3288. SCP-3288, also known as the Aristocrats, are highly predatory species or subspecies of the genus Homo. 3288 instances are mutated and deformed to an inhuman degree. They are completely hairless and have chalk white, light-sensitive skin. Their arms are fully twice as long as a human's and in polydactyl hands, covered in enamel. The substance tends to fracture and shift, causing pain, but allowing the afflicted to remain mobile. SCP-3288 instances hate and fear bright light, which causes them great pain. The mental state of 3288 are unstable, primarily characterized by delusions of grandeur and malignant narcissism. 3288 are usually about human-sized, often slightly shorter due to their pronounced hunchbacks, but some instances can grow much larger than any human. 3288 instances have abnormal muscle strength despite having the appearance of severe emaciation. They also exhibit heterochromia, with each eye a different color. Colors range from blue, red, purple, and yellow. Their most horrific feature is a massive mouth with grotesquely jutting jaws, containing at least 60 huge teeth, approximately 6 times the size of normal adult teeth, packed unevenly into 6 rows. 3288 are also addicted to eating human flesh, primarily targeted the most vulnerable of the population, such as prostitutes, unsupervised children, transients, and inebriated or otherwise indisposed individuals. These detrimental traits have not been only negated, but inversely amplified, resulting in longer lifespans, increased resistance to disease, and anonymously high levels of fertility. SCP-3288 pregnancies have a gestation period of around 2 weeks, and usually produce multiple offspring, which reach physical and sexual maturity in less than 2 years. According to the entries by Leopold I, it seems that the creation of SCP-3288 is the result of the introduction of an anomalous gene into the Habsburg family bloodline. This gene allows human DNA to resist certain deleterious conditions associated with inbreeding. The House of Habsburg continued its practice of inbreeding. Those with significant deformities were hidden from the public. The Habsburg monarchs even created vast vaults to house them, and those who more closely resembled baseline humans remained on the surface. Documents reveal that the lifestyle of those who live in the vault is as luxurious as the one above. The request of food, wine, and entertainment over time become eccentric and strange, and eventually depraved. Among these requests was a substantial supply of human corpses, killed by the Great Plague of 1738, for use as food. Among the entries, there's one document that contains a list of vaults. The Foundation has used this information to locate and neutralize SCP-3288 hives, but half of the document was illegible due to mold-related damage. This means that at least half of these vaults will continue to be a significant threat to the public. SCP-3288 were first found out by the Foundation in 1988. They became aware of 3288 while investigating reports of unexplained disappearances in Vienna. It was discovered that these incidents occurred near sewer holes and access tunnels. 2 agents were dispatched to Vienna to determine whether or not those unexplained disappearances were of an anomalous nature. Interviews with law enforcement and government officials revealed that human remains belonging to 3 individuals had been recovered, but that this information was not released to the public due to concerns of causing further panic. These remains were then delivered to Humanoid Containment Site 282 in Graz. Autopsy reports noted that the 3 remains displayed no injuries corresponding with a human attacker. The doctor concluded that all sustained injuries were caused by a mix of teeth, claws, and raw physical strength. Further analysis revealed unique patterns among the bite marks, suggesting that there existed more than one source. In order to track down 3288, Mobile Task Force Sigma-6 was ordered to patrol the Leopoldstadt district, which has the highest number of recorded disappearances. Operatives are instructed to target 3288 with tracking darts and to refrain from lethal force. Their first operation happened on the 10th of June, 1988. 12 MTF Sigma-6 operatives patrolled the Leopoldstadt district in the evening. 2 hours later, operatives 12 and 09 reported hearing a muffled scream near the Donut Canal and sought to investigate the matter while requesting backup. Support arrived 3 minutes after the initial request and found the mangled remains of both operatives, as well as the half-consumed body of a local civilian. Operative 12's head was detached from his body and was never located. His neck had sustained injuries suggesting that it had been severed or destroyed by a single bite. A trail of blood and entrails led to Operative 09, who had been torn in half along the waist. He had successfully crawled into an alleyway before succumbing to his injuries. The mission was deemed a success despite the loss of life, as Operative 09 had successfully struck the SCP-3288 instance with a tracking dart. The entity had escaped into the sewers, its movements tracked until the signal began to fade before entirely disappearing. A month later, MTF Sigma-6 operatives were sent out again to the last known location of 3288. The Foundation hoped to minimize the possibility of escape and public exposure. Therefore, this time, they can use lethal force, if necessary. After several hours of investigation, Operatives 04 encountered human skeletal remains while wading through waist-deep water. Closer analysis of this area uncovered several loose bricks, which removal revealed an unrecorded subterranean chamber, whose walls were engraved with the House of Habsburg's coat of arms. The chamber included 24 sarcophagi and was presumably a family crypt belonging to the House of Habsburg. Prying open the sarcophagi revealed the skeletal remains of over 300 victims, all displaying severe and likely fatal deformities. At the far end of the crypt was a vault door composed of bronze, with no apparent means of access, and seemingly impenetrable without proper equipment. The door displayed the House of Habsburg coats of arms and was engraved with the words, "For purity of blood." MTF Sigma-6 operatives were ordered to hold their current location and await the arrival of an infiltration team. Foundation agents organized the temporary evacuation of the city and the sealing of all sewer access points. Finally, after many attempts to open the vault door, the bronze gate was finally carved apart via oxyfuel cutting torches and revealing a spiral staircase. An 8-person squad descended the staircase, with radio transmission growing increasingly faint as the operatives traveled down the stairs. Red ground flares were periodically lit and discarded, providing a clear path of return. Operatives reached the bottom of the stairwell, where the gray stone halls of the crypt were replaced by architectural designs resembling 18th century depictions and reflecting the early Rococo artistic style popular during the era. The location, hereafter known as SCP-3288-1A, contained various sculptures and Corinthian columns, while paintings and tattered tapestries adorned its walls. All depictions of the human form had been literally defaced, regardless of artistic medium. Operatives told Control Center that the air smells like rotten meat and stale sweat. The floor and walls were stained with blood. Traveling through the corridor, operatives entered what appeared to be SCP-3288-1's library. The desk contained documents relating to alchemy, biology, contracts, and private journals. Most of these were in Latin and German. Operatives reached the ballroom and opera hall, describing the air as fetid. The aroma of perfume was also noted. The area contained a number of instruments. There were several refectory tables, probably used as a dining hall as well. Atop the tables were human remains in various levels of decomposition and culinary presentation. A bell abruptly began to toll, and was followed by the automatic music of a nearby pipe organ. The discordant song played for approximately 3 minutes. When the pipe organ ceased its playing, it was followed by the sound of opening doors and shuffling footsteps. Operatives were ordered to hide behind the curtains and deactivate their flashlights. Unfortunately, Operatives 18 fell behind, having tripped over a pile of bones, and forced to take cover behind a harpsichord. Operatives observed the entire ballroom from the far corner of the stage curtain. The ballroom's wide gates opened. SCP-3288 walked in while dressed in the garb of 18th century courtiers. Then a pair of diminutive SCP-3288 entered, lagging behind the others. One blew a rusty trumpet while the other acted as standard bearer, holding a crudely painted ensign depicting a red lion on a black field. The trumpeter and standard bearer quickly moved aside after making an announcement, their stunted legs causing them to tumble and roll as they fled. There now appeared to be several hundred SCP-3288 throughout the ballroom. Operatives 01 activated a silent distress call, requesting heavy support. All 3288 proceeded to kneel and lower their heads. An exceptionally corpulent instance of SCP-3288, classified as SCP-3288 Alpha, entered the room, carried by other SCP-3288 via an enlarged and reinforced sedan chair. 3288 Alpha was dressed in a patchwork of noble finery, stitched together from various fabrics to create a single outfit capable of fitting its frame. It wore a crown that had come to more closely resemble a torture device, too small for its head but held in place by an overgrowth of flesh. In lieu of a masquerade mask, it hid its face beneath a red shroud. A large iron cauldron containing deformed living victims was delivered to SCP-3288 Alpha's table. A dwarf 3288 climbed atop 3288 Alpha's shoulder and lifted up its red veil, covering only the eyes. 3288 Alpha sniffed the air, then proceeded to lift the cauldron and pour the victims down its anonymously large mouth and gullet. The other 3288 raised their masks and began to feast. An exceptionally tall specimen approached the harpsichord and snatched Operative 18 from behind it. The entity unhinged its jaw and quickly forced the operative down its throat first. His screams unheard among the sounds of feasting and discordant music. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the event, causing mass casualties among the 3288. It is hypothesized that Operative 18 survived his ordeal and was able to activate an explosive device, sacrificing himself in order to terminate 3288. Panic spread among the remaining 3288. MTF Sigma-6 took this opportunity to release 3-methylfentanyl to make 3288 unconscious. With the arrival of reinforcements, the survivors were secured and contained at Humanoid Containment Site 282. The sheer size of SCP-3288 Alpha necessitated the use of a specialized crane and the creation of a shaft directly connecting SCP-3288-1 to the surface. Following the removal of SCP-3288 Alpha, SCP-3288-1 was filled with cement and reburied. Suddenly, SCP-3199 jumped right at one of the personnel. They barely had time to react before it escaped from the corridor. They fired off enough rounds to blow a chunk out of its chest. 3199 let out the most awful scream. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you SCP Foundation Keter Class Object SCP-3199. SCP-3199, also known as human, is a sentient humanoid species of a currently unknown biological origin, though tissue samples suggest traces of domestic chicken and chimpanzee DNA. 3199 is hairless, stained with a thin layer of albumin, and stand at an average of 2.9 meters. A matured 3199 weighs around 780 kilograms, and a hatchling weighs at 360 kilograms. The necks of 3199 appear dislocated, and are capable of twisting approximately 340 degrees, presumably due to the nature of 3199's reproductive cycle. SCP-3199 is an opportunistic hunter, engaging with live subjects within a radius of 0.6 kilometers surrounding hatchlings that have not yet reached full adolescence. Its average speed is recorded at 25 kilometers per hour. Upon contact with human or animal subjects, 3199 will kill them, liquefying their internal organs and bone structure. The cadaver is then given to the young and utilized as a form of nourishment. Instances of 3199 have been observed producing large eggs of an off-white coloration and rubbery appearance. These eggs will pass through its stomach, esophagus, and eventually extract via the mouth, followed by a highly corrosive red substance. SCP-3199 shows extreme distress throughout the entire process, with SCP's personnel describing the sound as not dissimilar to a scream. Presumably, due to a biologically ingrained method of avoiding extinction, SCP-3199 will always produce its eggs to fill all available space. This anomalous property currently has no known limit, and as a result may pose an LK-class species transmutation scenario. Termination of 3199 can be performed with relative ease. However, a complete eradication is currently difficult, as all instances of 3199, regardless of age, will always carry one egg inside their stomach to ensure survival for at least one member of their species at all times. The eggs from 3199 have proven to be extremely resilient. Experiments shows the egg sample lacking visible signs of damage after subjection to extreme blunt force trauma, extensive pressure exceeding 180,000 psi, high-precision blades, and even long-term acid exposure. Use of point-blank explosives was suggested, but never tested, because heat exposure has been determined to accelerate hatch rates, and thus detonation may run the risk of a containment breach. During the intense heat exposure experiment, an egg sample from 3199 was secured in a containment cell that gradually increased its temperature at an average rate of 7 degrees Celsius per minute. After approximately 9 minutes, the egg ruptured violently and produced a single hatchling. On-site personnel reacted swiftly, trying to recontain the newborn instance. However, the excessive internal temperature impacted the physical growth of the young instance, and it reached adolescence at an accelerated rate of 40 seconds. As a result, it produced 2 further instances of 3199. On-site security response was swift, and all 3 instances were detained. All future heat testing involving 3199 egg samples has been forbidden until further notice. In the liquid nitrogen bath experiment, an egg sample was submerged entirely in liquid nitrogen. After approximately 45 minutes of exposure, SCP-3199 had reached negative 190 degrees Celsius. Following 2 hours of exposure, the egg sample was removed and placed under extreme pressure. As a result, hydraulic press peaked at pressures of around 9,000 psi. Cracks appeared 30 minutes into exposure, before the sample shattered. Egg fragments were collected and furthermore pressed into a fine pulp. 0 traces of albumin or yolk were located. Incineration of these remains proved successful at destroying the egg in its entirety. SCP-3199 was discovered in Ireland after reports of an unidentified, bald creature crying like a banshee from within a dense woodland resulted in the dispatching of MTF Omega-19. MTF Omega-19 arrived around 2100 hours. They were told that if they could not catch 3199, the next best thing would be snapping a frame or 2. Then the Foundation hooked them up with the best night vision hardware. An hour later, they found a shack, made from scrap metal and wood. It looked a lot like an oversized chicken coop. The team then entered the shack. Suddenly, SCP-3199 jumped right at one of the personnel. They barely had time to react before it escaped from the corridor. They fired off enough rounds to blow a chunk out of its chest. 3199 let out the most awful scream. Unfortunately, 2 personnel lost their lives during the action. Their internal organs and jaws were almost entirely dissolved. During transportation back to Site-114, 3199 produced 2 more offspring, resulting in the deaths of another 6 personnel. On 2017, the Foundation did a thorough sweep of 3199's initial recovery location. It was performed to uncover any further information regarding their origin. Locals claimed that the small remote residence in question has been established in the woods for several years. Surface Team D029 managed to recover several items of interest, including 1 bag of assorted thread and needles, 3 chicken feather quills, 13 chicken carcasses with precise incisions located on the underbelly, neck, and thigh. Unbelievably, 6 of the carcasses had been plucked, with visible human teeth marks lining the bare areas seemingly at random. The team also recovered several containers, including water bottles and Tupperware boxes, holding an unidentified watery paste. The paste is deep brown in color, and when exposed to oxygen, it becomes viscous and hard. An A5 notebook, heavily scratched with human fingernails, was also found amongst the stuffs. The words, "Open when we are pure," are written on the front of the notebook. The notebook itself consisted of 24 pages of standard lined paper written in non-anomalous black ink. 19 of these pages consisted of various cuboid patterns and crude, childlike illustrations vaguely resembling SCP-3199. On the remaining 5 pages, large lines of writing detail the diary of an unnamed individual. Most of what was written was found totally illegible. However, one extract dated in 1973 was written with notably higher clarity, and quote, "If you're reading this, then lucky you. 1 millionth hour from not and it'll be fun. And the wonderful versatility of inferior human DNA will give birth to a new era. A stronger era. One where and food and water will be nothing but things of the past, as we make and make and make more for the better future. I really haven't much time. That's why I envy you so. You'll have all the time you need. Time will be on, and death will be life. New life changes lives and brings smiles like a freshness. New life will be a part of life from now on." The final page consisted of several ink blots, 13 instances of the word life in various sizes, and 2 instances of the words, "Didn't you want this?" SCP-3199 was issued Keter classification on June 10th of 2017, following the events of a containment breach. After the breaching incident, SCP-3199's original water containment method was disassembled and replaced with the current resin solution. Besides, Protocol 34-22-B poached will be carried out during the event of a breach. The following steps are the procedure of this protocol. On-site personnel with Level 1 security clearance or above initiate standard lockdown procedure and immediately move to Site-113 unless instructed otherwise. Site-114 is to be filled entirely with distilled water, treated with Class A sedatives. Then, Surface Team Tango 306-A will be notified and dispatched and instructed to retrieve any instances of SCP-3199's eggs. Any living instances of 3199 will be terminated on site, and their remaining eggs will be collected. All egg samples are to be transported to temporary off-site containment. Site-114 will then be drained, and janitorial staff dispatched to thoroughly clean the area. Any personnel attempting to breach Site-114 before this inspection is complete will be apprehended and suspended accordingly. Some personnel have displayed skepticism regarding the necessity of this protocol. However, Dr. Watt believes that fluid is an excellent counter to 3199's anomalous reproductive properties. It appears to enter an inert state in the presence of liquid, regardless of thickness or clarity. There are 2 theories regarding this occurrence. First, SCP-3199's need for survival demands all of its attention to focus on not drowning. Second, SCP-3199 considers the liquid around it as full space, and as a result does not produce any egg when submerged. A large black tentacle can be seen rapidly emerging from below. This tentacle proceeds to wrap around the Nautilus and begins to rapidly drag it down. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you SCP Foundation Keter Class Object SCP-5007. SCP-5007, as known as Bass Strait, is the collective designation of malicious, partially humanoid entities that maintain a territory across the Bass Strait. This area of the ocean divides Tasmania and the Australian mainland, and it has been known for a string of disappearances within this range. The morphology of 5007 often varies. Universally, 5007 are composed of groups of between 2 and 9 human bodies, fused together amidst large clusters of black tentacles. These tentacles appear to vary in length between approximately 2 and 70 meters. Additionally, they appear fused to the skin where they touch directly. Of note are the stomachs of 5007, which are grossly distorted and swollen to sizes approaching 15 to 20 meters in diameter. Instances are capable of passive flight, attaining buoyancy through enormous quantities of gases produced within their stomachs. Across the surface of these organs, most specimens develop clusters of simple eyes and bioluminescent organs. 5007 are known to abduct human beings. They appear able to navigate all weather with minimal difficulty, regardless of clear or hostile skies. 5007 will move towards the shore, stalking the intended victim for a short time before lowering numerous tentacles and appendages down to the proximity of the subject to physically grab them. Once the victims are securely captured, they will return to the open water at great speed, often in excess of 320 kilometers per hour. Foundation teams successfully interviewed over 120 witnesses and soon discovered that in a vast majority of cases, the abductions were both preceded and followed by reports of lights in the sky. Likewise, there were also more concrete sightings of unidentified flying objects described as looking like balloons. The first successful visual recordings were accomplished in late 1982. It was successfully captured and transported to Site 40 for containment. It was then designated as SCP-5007-S1. After the containment of 5007-S1, it was determined that there must be at least 16 instances of 5007 as yet unaccounted for. One of the reefs located in the central Bass Strait has been proven to be the home and origin of 5007 and has been dubbed SCP-5007-A. There is a large pit in the center of 5007-A, measuring 33 meters in diameter and extending to an as yet unknown depth below the surface of the water. This pit has been dubbed SCP-5007-B, and unmanned exploration via drones has shown it to have a depth of at least 4,000 meters. Water samples collected from 5007-B contain large quantities of human DNA and an unknown biological compound. Additionally, the presence of a large entity below 5007-B has been suspected for some time. This entity has been designated SCP-5007-C. In order to determine the nature of 5007-C, D-500798 was instructed to dive to the bottom of 5007-B to observe the environment and describe significant depth readings. Below is the footage that was recorded by the cameras that mounted on the exterior of the SCPs Nautilus. All systems are good. I'm ready to submerge. SCPs Nautilus is lowered into 5007-B. Looking good, headed down. Seeing a lot of strange black-yellow vines growing around the walls of the trench. A large 5007 instance comes into view, clinging to a rocky outcropping. All of its eyes follow the SCPs Nautilus, and many of the previously seen tendrils are wrapped around the specimen and inside of its orifices, particularly the mouths and noses of the individuals composing the bulk of the specimen. Is that a plane it's holding onto? 528 meters down? Another 135 5007 instances are seen at 5,391 meters deep, along with 58 overgrown plane wrecks. At this depth, natural light cannot penetrate through to illuminate what they are seeing. How am I not at the bottom? They said they didn't think it went deeper than 4,000 meters. I'm glad those things don't seem interested in me. The SCPs Nautilus passes a badly damaged human arm, which appears to have been crushed. The arm is visibly twitching. Oh my god. 5,800 meters now, seeing human remains. God, I can't wait to get back up and go home. I wouldn't mind just going back to prison at this point. It feels so wrong down here. The SCPs Nautilus passes into a brine pool and visibility drops. Visibility is even worse down here. 6,000 meters now. I'm not seeing any fish or anything. the SCPs Nautilus enters a large mass of human remains similar to the arm he encountered previously. The remains all appear to have been crushed and drained of. However, the eyes remain intact. D500798 can be heard hyperventilating as they enter this area. Each individual floating in this area is alive and attempting to move, despite the enormous damage to their bodies. All can be seen visibly observing the SCPs Nautilus as it passes them. Oh my God, this can't be possible. How are they moving? At this point, the remains are attempting to grab the SCPs Nautilus and communicate with it. Thumping can be heard inside the submersible as they bump against it. They're saying something. Oh God, they're talking to me. What are they saying? One set of partial remains floats in front of the SCPs Nautilus, looking directly at the camera. Go back. They're saying go back. Oh no, I can't do this. I can't. I've gone down 6,700 meters. I'm not going any further. SCPs Nautilus's rate of descent is seen to slow, but passes the mass of human remains into clear water again. At this moment, D500798 can be heard performing calming breathing exercises for 19 minutes. Okay, let's keep going. Currently at 7,208 meters down. A large black tentacle can be seen rapidly emerging from below. It is approximately 8 meters in diameter and features numerous yellow eyes growing on it. This tentacle proceeds to wrap around the Nautilus and begins to rapidly drag it down. D500798 can be heard panicking and expressing distress during this process. 8 more tentacles can be seen rising towards the Nautilus. 3 of these possess large openings on their ends, which proceed to open as they approach the submersible, revealing large clusters of eyes, mouths, and human heads seemingly grafted to the tentacles. A mass of thin tentacles emerge, holding 2 victims. The tentacles proceed to press the individuals together, causing them to fuse together by unknown means. Both individuals show signs of significant distress. The tentacles proceed to further alter both victims before thin green tentacles enter the frame from above and force themselves into the victims' abdomens, which begin to swell. Suddenly, the entire frame is filled by an enormous eye ringed with tentacles, large claws, and human remains. It is estimated to be at least 650 meters in diameter. D500798 can be heard screaming for the entire duration of this portion of footage. The Nautilus is rapidly ascending, though the cameras are partially obscured by an unknown substance. D500798 can be heard babbling and vomiting. The Nautilus breaches the surface. Recovery teams successfully recover the submersible. Upon the recovery of the Nautilus, it was found that the submersible was almost entirely covered in a thick organic coating, with dozens of eyes growing from it. Upon their extrication from the Nautilus, D500798 immediately attempted to attack Foundation personnel and harm themselves. They showed signs of anomalous physical alteration, namely the growth of numerous eyes over their upper body and arms. On-site security determined that D500798 was a threat to personnel safety and immediately terminated them with small arms fire. We hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Have a favorite SCP you want to see on this channel? Leave us your suggestions in the comments down below. In the meantime, if you'd like to see more SCP content, then check out some of our other videos right here. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye-bye!